After 25 years of loyalty, I was told I no longer fit the company image. 1 week later, the new CEO posed with my replacement in a company post titled, "Meet the Future." That's when I decided I wouldn't go quietly. My name is Daniel Kessler. I'm 51 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was the senior client director at Morrison Strategic Consulting in downtown Chicago. For a quarter century, I'd built that firm's most valuable relationships from absolutely nothing. I'd turned handshake deals into multi-million-dollar contracts, transformed skeptical prospects into loyal advocates, and generated more revenue than any other director in the company's 40-year history. The corner office on the 32nd floor had been mine for 8 years. The view of Lake Michigan reminded me every morning why I'd chosen this life. Stability, respect, the ability to provide for my family and support my disabled younger brother Tommy, who relied on my health insurance for his specialized care. My wife Leah used to joke that I was married to the firm first and her second. She wasn't entirely wrong. I'd missed countless dinners, weekend plans, school events for my son Ben, and family vacations because a client needed something. But that sacrifice had meaning. It built something lasting, something secure, until Skylar Vance arrived like a corporate hurricane. Skylar was 36 years old, fresh from a venture capital firm in Silicon Valley, and everything the board thought they needed to modernize Morrison Strategic. She had an MBA from Stanford, a personal brand with 50,000 LinkedIn followers, and a vocabulary filled with buzzwords like synergize, disrupt, pivot, and leverage synergistic opportunities. Her first company-wide meeting was held in the main conference room on a Monday morning in September. She wore a crisp white blazer and spoke with the unshakable confidence of someone who'd never failed at anything important in her privileged life. Morrison Strategic has a proud legacy, she began, clicking through slides filled with corporate buzzwords and stock photos of diverse young professionals in modern offices. But legacy thinking won't carry us into the next decade. We need fresh energy, innovative approaches, and teams that reflect the dynamic, fast-moving marketplace we're serving. I should have seen the writing on the wall then. But after 25 years of building something meaningful, you start to believe you're untouchable. You start to believe that competence and results matter more than image and politics. I was wrong. The warning signs were subtle at first, like hairline cracks in a foundation that would eventually bring down the entire structure. Skylar scheduled one-on-one meetings with every senior director, ostensibly to understand our current capabilities and identify growth opportunities. When my turn came, she sat across from me in her new office, the one that used to belong to my old mentor, Richard Morrison, before he retired and left the company in what he thought were capable hands. "Daniel, I've been reviewing your client portfolio extensively," she said, scrolling through a tablet with manicured fingers. "Impressive numbers, really impressive. You've clearly built strong, lasting relationships over the years." "Thank you. These clients trust Morrison because we deliver consistent results and understand their businesses intimately." "Absolutely. And that's exactly why I wanted to talk to you about the future direction of our client services team and how you fit into our strategic vision." She leaned forward, adopting what I recognized as her serious conversation posture. A calculated gesture probably taught in some executive leadership seminar. "We're implementing some significant organizational changes to better align with market trends and evolving client expectations. Today's decision makers, especially younger executives, want to work with people who understand their perspective, their communication style, their digital-first approach to business." My clients seem quite satisfied with the service they're receiving. Our retention rate is 97%. "Of course they are. You're excellent at what you do. But I'm thinking bigger picture here. Long-term strategic positioning for both the firm and our client relationships." I waited for her to get to the actual point, sensing that everything up to now had been carefully scripted preamble. "I'd like you to consider transitioning some of your key accounts to Jordan Blake. He's brilliant, hungry, and exactly the kind of fresh thinking our clients are looking for in today's market." Jordan Blake was 28 years old, hired 6 months earlier with an Ivy League pedigree and zero real-world experience. He'd spent our first meeting explaining how traditional consulting was fundamentally disrupted by new methodologies he'd learned in business school, using phrases like paradigm shifts and value propositions, without understanding what any of it actually meant in practice. "Jordan is talented," I said carefully, "but these relationships took years to build. My clients value consistency, proven expertise, and deep understanding of their industries, which is exactly why this transition needs to be handled thoughtfully and strategically. You'd be mentoring Jordan, ensuring continuity while gradually shifting primary relationship responsibility to him. And what would my role be in this new structure? We're still defining that, but I'm confident we'll find the right fit for your skills and experience level. The phrase experience level carried a subtle sting, a gentle reminder that I was older, potentially outdated, possibly obsolete. 3 weeks later, I was called into HR for what Patricia Wong described as a routine administrative meeting. "Daniel, we need to discuss some significant organizational changes," said Patricia, the HR director who'd processed my promotions and raises for the past decade. She couldn't meet my eyes. "Let me guess. Fresh faces?" Patricia looked genuinely uncomfortable, shifting papers around her desk unnecessarily. "The company is restructuring to better serve evolving client needs and market demands. Unfortunately, your current position is being eliminated as part of this strategic realignment. After 25 years of building this company's most profitable relationships, we're deeply grateful for your contributions over the years. The severance package reflects that appreciation." She slid a manila folder across the polished conference table. Inside, 1 month's salary, immediate termination of health benefits, and a standard non-disclosure agreement that would prevent me from discussing anything about my termination. This is it? 1 month after 25 years of loyalty? The package is competitive for the current market standards. What market? The market for disposing of employees who built this company from the ground up? Daniel, I understand you're upset and I don't blame you, but these decisions come from the very top of the organization. My hands are completely tied here. I read through the severance agreement carefully, my legal training from night school decades ago kicking in. Standard boilerplate language, except for one critical detail that would change everything. They'd forgotten to include a non-compete clause. I need time to review this with my attorney before making any decisions. Of course. You have until Friday to decide whether to accept the terms. And if I don't accept, then you receive no severance, but you're free to pursue other opportunities immediately. That afternoon, I cleaned out my corner office for the last time. 25 years of awards, client gifts, family photos, and personal mementos fit into 3 cardboard boxes that seemed pathetically small for a career's worth of memories. As I packed my signed baseballs and framed letters of appreciation from grateful clients, Jordan Blake appeared in my doorway with a smile that didn't reach his calculating eyes. "Hey, Daniel, really sorry to hear about the organizational changes. Rough timing with the holidays coming up and everything." Timing? Well, with Christmas around the corner and the job market being what it is for experienced professionals. But hey, I wanted you to know I'll take excellent care of your client relationships. I've already started reaching out to introduce myself and establish rapport. You've already started reaching out? Skylar thought it would be smart to get ahead of the transition curve. You know how it is? Clients hate uncertainty and communication gaps. My hands stopped moving as the full implications hit me. Which clients have you contacted? The major accounts, obviously. Morrison Industries, Blackstone Group, Meridian Financial, Continental Manufacturing. Don't worry. I'm making sure they understand how much you contributed to building these valuable relationships over the years. He was already dismantling my life's work before I'd even left the building. The relationships I'd nurtured for decades were being handed over to someone who couldn't tell the difference between revenue and profit. Jordan, these relationships are built on trust that took years to establish. You can't just transfer that with an introductory phone call. I understand your concern, but I think you're underestimating my ability to connect with people. I've got fresh ideas and energy that these clients are going to love. That evening, I sat in my kitchen and told Leah what had happened, watching her face shift from disbelief to anger to concern as the full impact became clear. 25 years, she said, staring at the severance papers spread across our dining table. 1 month's pay? They want fresh faces. Jordan Blake is the future of client services, apparently. The kid who's been there 6 months and has never managed a client relationship in his life? Skylar thinks he better represents the company's new direction and market positioning. Leah was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications for our family's financial security. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But I was lying. I knew exactly what I was going to do. and it had nothing to do with walking away quietly. The next morning, I called my attorney, Mike Rosenberg, who'd handled my contract negotiations and legal questions for years. No non-compete clause, he confirmed after reviewing the severance agreement thoroughly. Either their lawyers got sloppy, or they didn't think you'd be enough of a threat to warrant protection. What does that mean practically for my options? It means you're completely free to work for anyone, including their direct competitors. You can even start your own firm and solicit clients, as long as you don't steal proprietary information or breach any existing confidentiality agreements. And if I don't sign the severance agreement at all? Then you get nothing in terms of payout, but you're still entirely free to compete. The non-compete restriction was tied specifically to accepting their financial package. I made my decision without hesitation. I wouldn't sign their agreement, and I wouldn't take their insulting money. 2 days later, the company's LinkedIn page featured a post that made my blood boil with righteous fury. Skylar stood next to Jordan in the main conference room, both smiling broadly for the camera. The caption read, "Meet the future. Jordan Blake joins our senior leadership team to drive innovation in client services. Excited to see fresh perspectives and cutting-edge thinking shaping our next chapter." The comments section was full of congratulations, fire emojis, and praise for the company's forward-thinking leadership. No mention whatsoever of the 25-year veteran they'd discarded to make room for fresh perspectives. That's when I stopped being angry and started getting methodically, strategically even. I spent the entire weekend in my garage, setting up a makeshift office with folding tables, my old laptop, and a determination that surprised even me. My son Ben, home from Northwestern for the weekend, helped me establish a basic LLC and build a simple but professional website. "Dad, you're really starting your own consulting firm?" he asked, designing a logo on his laptop with the kind of effortless technical skill that made me proud. "I'm really starting my own consulting firm." "What about health insurance? Retirement savings? All that stability stuff you always talked about?" "I'll figure it out as I go. I should have done this years ago instead of letting other people control my professional destiny." "Mom's worried about the financial risk." "Mom will understand when she sees the billing statements." Ben laughed. "That's the dad I remember from before you got comfortable." Monday morning, I made my first call to test the waters, choosing Robert Morrison because I knew he'd give me an honest assessment of the situation. "Morrison Industries, this is Carol." "Carol, it's Daniel Kessler. Is Robert available for a quick conversation?" "Daniel? Oh my goodness, we heard about the changes at Morrison Strategic. How are you holding up? We've been worried about you." "I'm doing well, thanks. Is Robert in his office?" "Hold on, I'll get him right away." Robert Morrison, no relation to the consulting firm despite the name, had been my client for 12 years. I'd helped his family business grow from a regional manufacturer to a national player in industrial equipment, increasing their revenue by 400% during our partnership. "Daniel, thank Christ you called. I've been trying to reach you all week, but nobody at Morrison Strategic would give me your contact information. I've been dealing with some transition issues. What's going on with your account? That kid they assigned to replace you, Jordan something, he's a complete disaster. Called me last Tuesday and spent 20 minutes explaining how we need to pivot our go-to market strategy and leverage digital transformation opportunities." I finally stopped him and asked if he'd ever set foot in an actual manufacturing plant. Dead silence on the phone? "I'm sorry to hear you're having service issues." "Don't be sorry. Tell me you're starting your own firm so we can fire these incompetent idiots." "I'm starting my own firm." "When can we sign a contract?" "I'm ready to move our account today." That conversation was repeated 8 times over the next 2 weeks. 8 of my former clients, representing roughly 60% of the revenue I generated at Morrison Strategic, were not just willing but eager to work with me directly. The 9th call was different and more revealing about the scope of Jordan's incompetence. Blackstone Group, Amanda speaking. "Amanda, it's Daniel Kessler. Is Michael available for a quick chat?" "Daniel, hold on, let me see if he's free. I know he's been trying to reach you for days." Michael Torres had been my client for 6 years. His private equity firm had relied on Morrison Strategic for due diligence and market analysis on dozens of potential investments worth hundreds of millions of dollars. "Daniel, where the hell have you been? Jordan Blake is driving me absolutely insane, and I'm about to terminate our relationship entirely." "What's he doing wrong?" "What isn't he doing wrong? He missed our quarterly review meeting without calling. sent me a proposal for services we never requested and don't need, somehow managed to bill us for work that was never approved or performed, and yesterday he called to suggest we disrupt our investment paradigm with something called blockchain-enabled deal sourcing. My CFO is ready to fire Morrison Strategic and sue them for malpractice. That sounds frustrating. Frustrating. It's professionally incompetent and potentially costly. Look, I don't care about corporate politics or whatever happened between you and the new management team. I care about results, competence, and protecting my firm's interests. Are you available for a meeting this week? I'm available. By the end of October, I had signed formal contracts with 7 former clients and was in advanced negotiations with 3 more. My garage office had evolved into a proper workspace with upgraded technology, a conference table that could seat 8 people, and a growing team of freelancers who'd worked with me at Morrison Strategic. Carla Rodriguez, my former colleague and the best financial analyst I'd ever worked with, joined me full-time after Skylar eliminated her position in what she called a redundancy optimization initiative. They offered me a severance package with a 2-year non-compete clause, she told me over coffee at our usual spot near the old office. But they also offered to let me stay if I accepted a 30% pay cut and a demotion to junior analyst. What did you tell them? I told them I'd rather work out of your garage than accept their insulting offer. It's not a garage anymore. We upgraded to a real office last week. Even better. When do I start? November brought the first clear sign that Morrison Strategic was noticing the client defections and starting to panic. Patricia Wong called me at home on a Thursday evening, her voice carrying a tension I'd never heard before. Daniel, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to touch base about a few administrative matters that have come to our attention. What kind of matters? Some of our clients have mentioned they're working with you directly now. I wanted to make sure there weren't any confidentiality issues or contractual concerns we needed to address. Are you suggesting I've done something improper or unethical? Not at all. I'm just making sure we're all on the same page about proprietary information and existing client relationships. Patricia, I signed no agreements limiting my ability to work. I've shared no confidential information belonging to Morrison Strategic. And the clients who chose to work with me made that decision based entirely on their dissatisfaction with current service levels. Of course, I just wanted to clarify the situation for all parties involved. The situation is crystal clear. Morrison Strategic chose to eliminate my position and replace me with someone fundamentally unqualified to serve these clients' complex needs. The clients noticed the difference. She hung up without saying goodbye, probably realizing that her call had accomplished nothing except confirming my legal position was unassailable. 2 days later, Jordan Blake called me directly, his voice carrying a combination of desperation and misplaced aggression that almost made me feel sorry for him. Daniel, we need to talk about what you're doing. What am I doing? You know exactly what you're doing. You're stealing my clients. Your clients? You know what I mean. The accounts I inherited from you when you left. Robert Morrison, Michael Torres, Continental Manufacturing, all the rest of them. They're all jumping ship, and I know you're actively recruiting them behind the scenes. Jordan, I'm behind nothing except providing competent service to clients who want to work with me. This is unethical and probably illegal. These were Morrison Strategic clients first, and you're using insider knowledge to poach them. These were my clients first. I built these relationships over decades of hard work and proven results. You've known them for 6 weeks and clearly learned nothing about their businesses or needs. Skylar is talking about pursuing legal action against you for tortious interference and client theft. Based on what legal theory? I signed no non-compete agreement. I've violated no contracts or confidentiality obligations. I'm simply offering better service than you're capable of providing. This isn't over, Daniel. You're absolutely right. It's just getting started. December arrived with Morrison Strategic's quarterly earnings call, and I listened to the webcast from my expanded office, now officially called Kessler Strategic Consulting and housing 6 full-time employees plus 15 freelancers. Skylar's voice was noticeably strained as she addressed the revenue shortfall that everyone could see coming from miles away. We're experiencing some client retention challenges as we implement our strategic transformation and organizational restructuring. This is a normal part of organizational evolution, and we expect these metrics to stabilize as our new team builds momentum and establishes client relationships. An analyst asked the obvious question that cut straight to the heart of the matter. Can you quantify the specific revenue impact of these retention issues? We're seeing approximately a 12% reduction in client services revenue compared to the same quarter last year. But we're confident this is a temporary adjustment period as we onboard fresh talent and implement innovative methodologies. 12% in one quarter. That was just the beginning of their problems. The real scope of the damage became apparent in January when Morrison Strategic announced they were right-sizing their operations to match current market conditions. 23 employees were laid off, including several people I'd worked with and respected for years. Patricia Wong called me the day after the layoffs were announced, her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd watched a company self-destruct from the inside. "Daniel, I wanted to give you a heads up about something that's coming. Skylar is planning to publicly blame the client losses entirely on you. She's telling people you poached clients using inside information and questionable business practices. Let her try. I've meticulously documented every interaction, every contract negotiation, every communication. If she wants to make this public and legal, I'm completely ready for that fight. I'm just warning you because I think you're a good person who got screwed over. She's desperate, and desperate people do incredibly stupid things. Thanks for the heads up, Patricia. And Patricia, start looking for a new job. This company won't survive another quarter like the last one. I know. I've already started interviewing elsewhere." February brought the direct confrontation I'd been expecting and preparing for since the day they fired me. I was having lunch at Shaw's Crab House, celebrating the signing of our largest contract to date, when Skylar approached my table. She looked exhausted and defeated, her usual polished appearance replaced by the haggard look of someone under immense professional pressure. "Daniel, can I sit down? We need to talk." "It's a free country." She sat across from me, folding her hands on the table in a gesture that was probably meant to convey sincerity but came across as desperation. "We need to discuss this situation between us." "What situation would that be?" "You know exactly what situation I'm referring to. You've systematically destroyed my client base. You've cost Morrison Strategic millions in revenue. You've nearly bankrupted a 40-year-old company out of personal spite. I've provided superior service to clients who were dissatisfied with your offerings and Jordan's incompetence. This isn't just business, Daniel. This is personal. This is calculated revenge for a business decision that wasn't even mine to make." I looked at her calmly, feeling no anger anymore, just cold satisfaction. "You're absolutely right. It is personal. What do you want from me? What will it take to make this stop? I want you to understand what you destroyed when you fired me without cause. I want you to understand the human cost of treating experienced people like disposable assets. I want you to understand that fresh faces mean absolutely nothing without competent brains behind them. The board is talking about replacing me. If I'm gone, will you stop? Will you give Morrison Strategic a chance to recover? Skylar, I'm not trying to destroy Morrison Strategic out of malice. I'm building something better for my clients and my employees. If that destroys your career in the process, that's a consequence of your decisions, not my problem to solve." She stood up without another word and walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind the check and her dignity. March brought Morrison Strategic's inevitable bankruptcy filing and the end of an era. The company that had employed me for 25 years, that had been my professional home and primary identity, ceased to exist. 40 years of history, hundreds of employees' livelihoods, decades of client relationships, all destroyed by incompetent leadership and strategic negligence. I felt no satisfaction watching the local news coverage of the bankruptcy proceedings. This wasn't victory in any meaningful sense. It was just the inevitable result of replacing competence with image, experience with youth, and results with buzzwords. Carla found me in my office that evening, staring out the window at the Chicago skyline where Morrison Strategic's name was being removed from their building. "You okay, boss?" "Define okay." "The company that fired you and treated you like garbage just went bankrupt. Your former clients are thriving under your guidance and singing your praises. You're building something significant and meaningful here. Most people would call that a complete victory. Most people didn't spend 25 years building something meaningful only to watch it collapse because of someone else's arrogance and incompetence. But you didn't let that collapse define you or destroy you. You rebuilt something better. You proved that the real value was in you and your relationships, not in the company name on your business cards." She was right, but it didn't make watching the destruction any less painful or complicated. But March also brought an unexpected development that added another layer to this corporate drama. Tommy, my disabled brother, called me at home one evening with news that would prove the personal stakes had been even higher than I'd realized. "Danny, I need to tell you something about my medical coverage," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "The insurance company is asking questions about my benefits eligibility." "What kind of questions?" "They're saying there might be irregularities in my coverage documentation. Something about my guardian's employment status being misrepresented." A cold realization hit me. "Tommy, when did these questions start?" "About 2 weeks ago, right after that article in the Tribune about Morrison Strategic's bankruptcy. I'd given several interviews to local business reporters about the consulting industry and the importance of experienced leadership. In one article, the journalist had mentioned my brother's medical needs as context for why I'd been so focused on job security throughout my career. "Danny, are you still there?" "I'm here." "Tommy, don't worry about this, I'll handle it." But I knew exactly what was happening. Someone was using my brother's vulnerability as leverage, trying to pressure me through the person I cared about most. The next morning, I called my attorney with a specific question about insurance fraud investigations. "Mike, hypothetically, if someone filed a false report claiming insurance fraud, what would the process look like?" "Why are you asking?" "Someone may be targeting my brother's disability benefits as retaliation for my business success." "That's serious, Daniel. If someone is making false claims about insurance fraud, that's a criminal matter. But it's also something we can fight aggressively." "What would you need to prove malicious intent?" "Documentation of the false claims, evidence of motive, proof that the person filing the report knew the claims were false." "I think I can get you all three." It took me 2 days to trace the insurance company inquiry back to its source. A call to my contact at the benefits administration company revealed that the fraud report had been filed by someone claiming to be a concerned former colleague, who provided detailed information about my employment status and my brother's coverage. The report had been filed by Jordan Blake. He'd used information from my personnel file, information he shouldn't have had access to file a false fraud report claiming I'd misrepresented my employment status to maintain my brother's coverage. It was petty, vindictive, and potentially criminal. But it was also a massive mistake. I met with Mike Rosenberg that afternoon to discuss our options. "This is harassment, defamation, and potentially criminal fraud," he said after reviewing the documentation. "Filing a false insurance fraud report is a felony in Illinois. What's our best course of action?" "We have 2 options. We can file criminal charges, or we can use this as leverage in the civil court system. Which would you prefer?" "I want to destroy him professionally. Criminal charges might be too quick. Then we file a civil lawsuit for harassment, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We demand damages, legal fees, and a public apology. And we make sure this becomes public record." The lawsuit was filed on a Tuesday morning in April. By Wednesday afternoon, it was front-page news in the Chicago Tribune business section. "Former Morrison strategic executive sued for harassment of disabled man," read the headline. The article detailed Jordan's false insurance fraud report and included quotes from my attorney about the unconscionable targeting of a vulnerable individual for corporate revenge. The story went viral on social media. LinkedIn exploded with outrage over Jordan's actions. HR professionals across Chicago shared the article with comments about professional ethics and basic human decency. Jordan's professional reputation was destroyed overnight. But the story wasn't finished yet. 3 days after the lawsuit was filed, I received a call from an unexpected source. "Mr. Kessler, this is Richard Morrison." Richard Morrison, the retired founder of Morrison Strategic, the man whose name had been on the building for 40 years before Schuyler Vance destroyed everything he'd built. "Mr. Morrison, it's good to hear from you. Daniel, I wanted to call personally to apologize for what happened to you and to discuss something that might interest you." "I'm listening." "I've been watching this whole situation unfold with growing disgust. What they did to you was unconscionable. What that young man did to your brother was inhuman." "Thank you for saying that. But I'm not calling just to apologize. I'm calling because I have a business proposition. I still own the Morrison Strategic name and trademark. The company may be bankrupt, but I retain the intellectual property rights." My heart started beating faster. "What are you proposing?" "I want to license the Morrison Strategic name to your firm. Let you rebuild what Schuyler destroyed, but do it right this time. You were the heart of that company for 25 years. You should be the one to restore its reputation." "Mr. Morrison, I appreciate the offer, but I've built something new. Kessler Strategic is doing well. I'm sure it is. But think about this. Morrison Strategic still has brand recognition, still has value in the marketplace. Combined with your client relationships and proven track record, you could build something larger than either name could achieve alone. What would you want in return? Nothing except the satisfaction of seeing my life's work rebuilt properly. No financial stake, no management role, no interference. Just the knowledge that the Morrison name is in capable hands again. I told him I'd consider it, but privately I was intrigued. The Morrison Strategic name still carried weight in the Chicago business community. It might be exactly what I needed to take the next step in growth. That evening, I discussed the offer with Leah over dinner. Would you really want to go back to using that name after everything that happened? She asked. It's not going back. It's taking something that was stolen from me and rebuilding it better. And it would drive Skylar crazy to see you succeed under the Morrison name. That's just a bonus. Ben, home from college for spring break, had been listening to our conversation. Dad, if you do this, you should hire some of the people who got laid off when Morrison went bankrupt. Show everyone that competent leadership can rebuild what incompetent leadership destroyed. That's actually a brilliant idea. The more I thought about it, the more the idea appealed to me. Rebuilding Morrison Strategic under my leadership, with the people who'd made it successful in the first place, would be the ultimate vindication. I called Richard Morrison the next morning and accepted his offer. Within 2 weeks, I'd hired 8 former Morrison Strategic employees, including Patricia Wong as our new HR director and 3 senior consultants who'd been laid off in the company's death spiral. We officially relaunched as Morrison Strategic Consulting in May, with a press conference that drew coverage from every major business publication in the Midwest. Today marks the rebirth of Morrison Strategic under leadership that understands the value of experience, relationships, and proven results, I told the assembled reporters. We're not interested in buzzwords or trendy methodologies. We're interested in delivering exceptional service to clients who deserve better than they've been getting. The questions from reporters were pointed and revealing. Mr. Kessler, some might see this as revenge against your former employer. How do you respond to that? I see this as justice. Morrison Strategic was destroyed by people who valued image over competence, youth over experience, and personal ambition over client service. We're rebuilding it the right way. What's your response to critics who say you're exploiting the Morrison name for personal gain? The Morrison name was being exploited by people who didn't understand its value. Richard Morrison built something meaningful over 40 years. I'm honored to carry that legacy forward. Do you have any message for Skylar Vance? I have no message for Ms. Vance. I'm focused on building something sustainable and valuable for our clients and employees. But privately, I knew she was watching, and I knew it was driving her insane. The final chapter of this story came in June, exactly 9 months after they fired me. I was in my new office, ironically, just 3 blocks from Morrison Strategic's old building, when my assistant knocked on my door with news that would complete this circle of justice. Mr. Kessler, I have Goldman Sachs Strategic Advisory on line 1. They're asking about a potential partnership opportunity. I picked up the phone, curious about what one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the world wanted with our rebuilt operation. Morrison Strategic Consulting, this is Daniel Kessler. Mr. Kessler, this is Jennifer Walsh from Goldman Sachs Strategic Advisory. We've been following your firm's remarkable resurrection story, and we'd like to discuss a significant partnership opportunity. What kind of partnership are you considering? We're looking for a Chicago-based consulting partner to handle our Midwest client relationships and regional market development. Your reputation, client base, and proven leadership make you the ideal candidate for this type of strategic alliance. Would you be available for a meeting next week in our New York offices? I looked around my office, larger and more impressive than my old corner office had been. 32 employees, 57 active clients, and revenue projections that would make Morrison Strategic's best years look modest. I'll have my assistant coordinate with your team to schedule something. What's the time frame for making this decision? We'd like to move relatively quickly. The market opportunity is significant, and frankly, we believe you're exactly what we need to capture it effectively. After I hung up, I walked to my window and looked out at the Chicago skyline. In the distance, I could see the building where Morrison Strategic had once operated, now mostly empty with 4 lease signs on multiple floors. My phone rang again. Mr. Kessler, I have Goldman Sachs on line 2. They're asking if your team would be available next quarter for a major client engagement worth potentially 8 figures. I smiled, straightened my tie, and felt the deep satisfaction of a job well done and justice served. Tell them we'll think about it.